potato ready to drop. I got a hot potato, somebody stop me. It's a molto caldo, fuori dal forno. It's a hot potato, no ifs, ands, or maybe.
Heute bei Stefan trifft hier von JL Audio, der Chef Doug Henderson bei uns. Ich mache hier die Anmoderation in Deutsch. Wir werden gleich in Englisch weitermachen, denn Doug kommt aus Amerika, war jahrzehntelang Chef von Bowers & Wilkins Amerika und ist jetzt eben bei JL Audio. Großer Enthusiast der Materie, werden wir auch gleich feststellen. Ich wünsche uns jetzt schon viel Spaß und dann starten wir. Doug Henderson.
Guten Morgen.
Not bad. I begin in English. He starts in German. Not bad.
That's about as far as it will go for me in German.
Nice to meet you here in Baden-Baden in our Klangvilla. As we see, we have a lot of equipment here, and we began yesterday with listening and demonstrating subwoofer systems, also with big speakers. As we see here, we have 801s D4 from Bowers with Class A Delta monos, Macintosh preamp, big name audio streamer, and then what it's all about today, we have JL Audio. JL Audio is in US, very, very big company for car hi-fi, for
marine hi-fi.
Yes, for marine hi-fi as well, and they have home audio as well. And we have the home audio things here. We have a Fathom 113 version 2 here, yes, and an E112 here. Two of the top subwoofers, and we will take a look what they will perform and giving many advices how to use a subwoofer and how to adjust it and making measurements maybe, so we touch some very special themes as well. But now we come to you personally. Maybe you can tell us something about your life. How did it come that you went to Hi-Fi, that you went to Bowers & Wilkins and then later to JL?
Yes, well, first of all, pleasure to be here in Baden-Baden, which is just a beautiful town. I've enjoyed my couple of days here, and the villa is spectacular. I've been all over the world and I've seen many facilities for Hi-Fi. This is really a step beyond. So it's wonderful to be here and spend some time with you. I've been very lucky. I've had a career in the audio business, which is something I've loved for my entire lifetime. I started very young. I started with an ambition to be a musician, and many people in this business wanted to be rock stars. That was my first career goal, was rock star, and it didn't quite work out. But then the next best thing is what happened, which is I was able to get a position as a young man working for a speaker company. That was in 1983. I then founded my own business and ran that company for 22 years in the audio business. I was a sales agency in the New York area. One of the brands that we represented very early on was Bowers & Wilkins, so my association with Bowers & Wilkins actually goes back to 1988. Then in 2007, I was offered an opportunity to run the North American Bowers & Wilkins operation, sales operation, which I did for the next decade. Then just recently, 6 years ago, I accepted a position with JL Audio, which was a company I always admired. The products speak for themselves in terms of the quality. And they really have defined the best in class for subwoofers. So it gave me an opportunity to focus again on a category and on a brand. We've been doing that, I've been doing that, as I say, since 2018. And I have a global responsibility with JL Audio, which is why I'm here in Germany.
Nice, and we have good weather here, so a lot of fun, but we spent most of the time listening and looking at the system where we now will take a look as well. But now first maybe we take a look at JL Audio. What they do, it was founded in 75. Correct. And the company is in Florida.
in Florida, near Miami, in Miramar, Florida, about half an hour from Miami.
Okay.
Founded by Jim Birch, who's the J, and Lucio Proni, who's the L, who were basically friends in college. And they started the business as they say today, a side hustle, just a way to make some money while they were in college. And bit by bit it grew. I think, as is often the case for companies that start in the way that JL Audio started, there was no notion that it would become as big as it has. Almost 50 years later, we're 700 people.
That's really a lot. Yeah. Maybe to begin, because maybe for some listeners, it's not so clear what the subwoofer is for. Most of them maybe think that it's for home cinema, yeah, as a 5.1, 7.1, 11.1 or 11.2. The 0.1 or the 0.2 means one subwoofer, two subwoofer in the system, and in the decoding systems from Dolby, from DTS, whatever it is, the bass track is on that, yeah, and not on the main signal. So you need a subwoofer to get the full range of frequency, but in a normal two-channel system, when people buy big speakers like 801, they maybe think that it's not necessary to have a subwoofer. It's not an improvement. And we tested the system, and you demonstrated also the 801 with or without subwoofer, and the result was amazing, but not with much more bass. The result was that you get a much bigger soundstage, very relaxed sound, a smoother sound in voices and instruments. So it was. I never thought that the subwoofer itself affects the main quality of the sound so much. Maybe we should divide that in big speakers and the improvement you can always have with good subwoofers, or helpful for bookshelf speakers, for example, to get a better bass, or for rooms that are special, lack of bass or too much bass. Maybe you can tell us some experiences, or share some experiences you had, and what is a solution for that.
You've shared some essential truths. I think people understand that a subwoofer is necessary for home theater because there is a dedicated bass track, there are explosions, there are special effects that have to do with very deep bass. So that's an assumption, but of course the subwoofer predated home theater. Subwoofer's been around for probably the better part of a century in high fidelity applications. And over my career, some of the very best systems I've ever heard have giant subwoofers associated with them. So at the very high end, it's not surprising that you would have a subwoofer, even with a very full range speaker. Part of that is because the way rooms operate and the ways you want to optimize the full range speakers, you're typically not placing them closer to room boundaries. As we have here with the 802s, they're pulled out from the room boundaries, they're away from the sidewalls, because you're trying to maximize the sense of space and transparency. You don't want voices, for instance, to become chesty because they're too close to the walls. Unfortunately, that means that they're not coupling very effectively to the room. So very deep bass requires that room gain or reinforcement. You can't simultaneously place the main speakers in the right place and the bass section of the main speakers in the right place, which is why having a separate subwoofer, as you can see with the Fathom, that's positioned where we identified the best spot for the subwoofer, is distinct from where the 801s are.
Maybe if we talk about the product itself now, this is a Fathom 113. It's the top model of the range. You can use one or two, and there are two more smaller ones, 112, and a quite small one, 110. So that could fit in every room, even if it's smaller or bigger. And then the other series is the E series beside it, also with 3 models. And then there are some Dominion subwoofer, smaller ones for maybe smaller, also 2-channel equipment. They can all be used by for home cinema systems for sure. We did that already in the last years, but with the time, subwoofers and 2-channel system were not so popular in German, and that's maybe what we could check now. What possibilities we have to use it and to adjust it. You already brought this CA1. As I see, it's a kind of active crossover. It's an analog active crossover, so not based on DSP, as I understand. And when you make measurements on your subwoofer, and if you buy the subwoofer and want to integrate it in your system, there's an easy way to install it. You have an app.
We have a free desktop application, which is what's running here, called Tune, which is a free download from our website, jlaudio.com. It's used with a simple USB measurement microphone, in this case a U-mic.
Normally the microphone is not here, it's on the listening position.
Correct. And the idea behind Tune is it gives you a visual reference with an RTA of what's happening in the room. So you need to know where the bass modes are, where the cancellations are, and where the peaks are as a starting point. And then you can use it further to integrate or to blend the subwoofer with the main speakers. Because the ultimate goal is to have full range sound, not a distinct subwoofer from the mains. You want it to be one coherent whole.
But there's a possibility to do that automatically. You press the knob on the app, do the measurement, and then...
Well, this process is not automatic, it's manual. This is a measurement tool, and we adjust the subwoofer at the subwoofer, looking at the results on the display from the RTA. We have an automatic process for the Fathom, which has to do with basically removing the peaks. The challenge with rooms is that they not only have peaks, which can be adjusted in equalization, they have cancellations. And cancellations, you can't fill in that energy because it's canceling. The nature of it is such that even if you put a big EQ bump into that spot, it's still canceling. So that's where careful placement of the subwoofer, and you mentioned more than one subwoofers, the ideal is to actually pressurize the room from more than one point. So as a subwoofer manufacturer, people would accuse us of trying to sell more subwoofers, but the truth of the matter is this is acoustic science. This is well known. If you have cancellations, the way you can address them is by positioning the subwoofers in different locations within the room.
Here, maybe it's a difference in the sofa here, sitting here. I think we have more pressure here, 1 meter.
What we discovered yesterday is the big drop mount is behind where everyone was standing.
Behind was really...
The bass just disappeared.
I know that.
I was getting killed up there, and everybody's looking like, where's the bass?
Over there, it's getting better again.
Yes, middle of that room. Sorry.
But here, very nearby, it is this nearly near field here.
So I mean,
and the difference here.
One of the things that I would encourage you to try after I've gone is move this sub here, put this sub in the corner right where you're standing, so you're doing a cross loading. I mean, ideally left, right, and back corner, and those are things you should experiment with because, again, the fact that the bass rolls out here means there's a big cancellation. So it's like a wave through an ocean, right? It's continually doing this at low frequencies. And if you're in one of those troughs, you can't fix it except to come at it. It's like throwing one stone in a pond sets up ripples and they're concentric. Throwing two, they now overlap in interesting ways, right? Throwing three, and now you have even waves across the room. That's sort of what we're trying to do with different multiple subwoofers.
I would love to have limit to your love. if you have it.
Limit to your love. We have cobots and title. We have everything. I assume. Limit to your love is by whom?
James Blake.
Ah.
This will bring
This will kill us.
bring this room to the limit.
It will kill. Yeah, limit to your love. Limit of the room.
There's a limit to your care.
Batten down the houses.
So carelessly there.
It's good to make movement.
Is it truth or?
Normally, when you're working on your room or you position a very good high-end system into your room, normally you have more pressure beside on the walls, on the edges of the room, and maybe lack of bass in the middle of the room where the speed of the waves is very high, but you don't have the pressure, and that helps a lot. Yeah? And in some positions, it's not possible to position the speakers, the passive speakers, near the wall, or you have to position them far away from walls and sit in the like here. Yeah, you sit here in the middle of the room, maybe 10 dB less space below 100 Hertz than in the rest of the room. So the subwoofer solves these problems when you adjust it very. But again, the question for what is DARO?
Digital Automatic Room Optimization. So it's an 18-band parametric EQ that only does as much as it needs to do. It looks at the peaks in the room and it will adjust, it'll bring those peaks down. If there's only one main peak, that's the only adjustment it makes. If there's three, it'll make three.
Yeah.
It could make up to 18, but it's not overused. If it's not finding those peaks, it's not adjusting things that don't need to be adjusted. So it's a very sophisticated DSP.
Okay, but that is done automatically by the software.
That is correct.
Okay. And then you have the possibility to adjust it by yourself, to make fine adjustment, or maybe your personal taste is that you want to have more bass or less or higher bass. You can all adjust it manually.
Yes. I would say that all audio to some degree is a compromise. You make conscious decisions. Perfection is very rarely achieved in real rooms because real rooms have all sorts of reflections and surfaces, and so there is always, it's always best that there's a human involved in making those decisions. And what we try to do is provide some tools to enable you to do that. The CR1 is a case in point.
Yeah, let's take a look at this. This seems to be very interesting because what we were talking before now with the measurement on the subwoofer, you can only influence the subwoofer. With this crossover, you can adjust the lower frequency, for example, for your main speaker. So you put that crossover into your integrated amp for tape loop or whatever to get inside, or in between output and input for pre and mains, or you have a preamp and a power amp and you put it just in between, and then it affects your main speakers as well. So you don't do the adjustment only on the subwoofer with this crossover and the app, you can adjust the whole system. And that's what we did here. That's quite sophisticated. I mean, this is not so easy to understand what happens there, but the result, listening to it, as I explained at the beginning already, is totally different than you think, because your speakers and the 801 is, I think most of the people agree, a very, very good speaker, yeah, without anything, without subwoofers, with a good amplifier. The result with this crossover, well adjusted here with the measurement and the subwoofer, the first listens was not as impressive as the 801 itself. There came nearly more pressure, but it was perfect. The upper waves of all the bass lines were hearable, not before. Soundstage much wider, and the differences between real deep bass and upper bass was so natural that it was not necessary to concentrate on that, what happens there. Yeah, it's absolutely relaxed and kind of perfect in the room. But again, can you please explain what you do while you do the measurement?
Yes, well, so two comments, and then I'll explain what we did. You are completely correct. We are trying to reveal what's in the recording, but not add anything to the recording. We're not trying to add bass that isn't there, overt bass. We're not trying to create an artificial experience. And in fact, what we heard, just as you said, was that the 801s, which are very good full-range speakers, actually sounded cleaner, faster, more transparent when there was an overt bass, because the bit that was being added was also being removed, and that's what the CR1 is about, from the 801s and the amplifiers driving the 801s. So they operate more cleanly with greater dynamic capabilities because they're not simultaneously trying to cover the very deep bass. And that became really apparent when we put on recordings that had truly deep dynamic bass. Then they're even faster, they're even larger in terms of how they present the sound, because those bass drivers otherwise are trying to reproduce maybe a 25 hertz tone, but also going up to 350 hertz or more where they cross over to the mid-range. That's hard to do because at 25 hertz, the movement of the cone is pronounced. At 350 hertz, it's a very fine movement by comparison.
And how fine is the adjustment you can make here?
So what the CR1 lets us do is set separate crossover points here for the subwoofer and for the main speakers. It lets us adjust at the crossover frequency between the sub and the mains, and also at the mains, looking down to the subwoofer. It lets us shade the balance of energy between the subwoofer and the main speakers. And what we have with the software is a visual representation of what's happening. So your ears can hear it, but they correspond it to something that's visual. That makes it, I think, a lot easier for people to make those finer adjustments.
Stereo with small speakers. What do you think in the room? When you have a 30 square meter room, is the sound better with a very good bookshelf speaker and a very good subwoofer, or maybe same cost, a floor standing speaker? So
this is an interesting thing, because all speakers, I like to say, above 80 hertz or so are small speakers. Right? All the mass of a speaker, if you look at some of the largest floor standing speakers, which tower over the two of us, the reason they're that size is because they're trying to deliver bass out of that full range speaker. Once you get to 80 cycles, 100 cycles, the movements are small, you don't need all that mass. So there is a real practical advantage to having a subwoofer with smaller speakers, whether they're floor standing or bookshelf speakers, because you let the heavy lifting be done by the subwoofer. You don't need to have that in the main speakers. So visually, you might have a better circumstance with your decor with a smaller speaker and a subwoofer.
And do you get more bass at low volume?
You do. You know, like most people, I live in a house with other people, with my wife, and I had a situation where if I wanted to play the system at, this was before I added a pair of Fathom F112 to my system, and I have B&W 802s, I'd have to play that system relatively loud to have satisfying bass. And that meant that I was potentially disturbing my wife. When I added the F112s, I could play it much more quietly and have satisfying bass.
Which amplifiers you use?
I have Rotel monoblocks.
Michi?
This is pre-Michi.
Okay.
So the B&W North America company that I ran also distributed Rotel. So my loyalties were to Rotel and B&W.
Good amplifiers.
Very good amplifiers. In any event, so the fact of the matter is you can play a system more quietly and have satisfying deep bass performance if you have a subwoofer or subwoofers involved, and therefore you're less likely to disturb the household. Again, that's one of those counterintuitive things. You would think that a subwoofer means that you're going to be transmitting a lot of bass energy. It can mean that. You can play it more loudly, but it also means you don't have to play it more loudly to have satisfying results.
What was the system you had most fun with in your life, hi-fi system? I would listen to it. I said I was there with listening to that.
So I can honestly say I've had fun with just about all of them, and that's a political answer. But I can think of moments going back across my career, which again goes a long way back. Dahlquist was the speaker company I started with, which a handful of people will remember. It was a speaker called the DQ10 that was magic in its day. I spent time with Harry Pearson, the founder of the Absolute Sound, who had a gargantuan Infinity IRS system with big woofer towers and Conrad Johnson vacuum tube electronics, valve electronics, and I remember the magic of that system. In my own personal systems, I've had a lot of B&W speakers. I've also had Sonus Faber speakers and various other things. And much of this was because I'm in the business and need to experience different things, but also for the sheer joy of it.
When I remember, I'm concerned with Bowers for many, many years, more than 30 years, and selling all kinds of matrix speakers they had. Also the first 801, first series, second, third. And do you remember with the 801, these small boxes were delivered as well, yeah? Kind of very small active crossovers to increase bass energy. Incredible. It was an alignment filter.
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes.
Great.
I do remember that well. I'm also one of the handful of people that owned a pair of John Bowers Active 1. B&W was John Bowers, more specifically, was an early proponent of active speakers.
So that's what I see. This is what this crossover also can. When you have a lack of bass, is it possible here? Like the alignment filter. The advantage of an active alignment filter is that when you have problems in your room or the quality of your recordings and you need more bass, more pressure, more full sound, yeah, when you have like in a Macintosh amp an equalizer or something like that that is passive, yeah, it influences all other frequencies as well. You adjust higher bass and you will have problems with your mid-range as well. So this is too wide, and the alignment filter, you can use it maybe for in between 50 and 80 hertz, and then it gets 60 dB plus. Yeah, only there, without affecting the rest. This was the advantage of the alignment filter. Does that work similar?
Yes. There are two things I would mention in that regard. This determines the crossover frequencies and the slope, i.e. how quickly the bass rolls off. And we can have 12 dB or 24 dB. We typically use 24 dB for the reason you suggest. You want to get that filter and that crossover out of the way as quickly as possible. Within the subwoofer itself, within the Fathom, there's also, in all of our models, there's a fully rotatable phase control. And phase on the subwoofer is basically an adjustment of timing. The idea is to have the energy that transfers from the subwoofer to the main speakers at the crossover frequency be maximized, meaning that the speakers are both pushing and pulling in the same moment in time. And the phase control, again, being fully variable, allows you to very precisely match the subwoofer to the main speakers. We used to do this by ear until we developed the tune software. Our ear is still very important, but again, now we have a visual representation. You can see where the energy is maximized at the crossover point, and when it's maximized, it's very simple. You know that then they're working together properly. So phase control plus crossover slope and level, of course, those are the main things you're going to adjust.
So very interesting, very detailed information we got here. I hope it's helpful for all of you. I think it's very interesting, and as we all have these problems with rooms and everything, I think this is a good solution. Thanks a lot, Doug, for coming, for doing all these tests here with us, and hope you come back.
Well, I look forward to coming back. This has been a wonderful visit. Dankeschön.
Ja, das war's auch schon für heute mit Stefan trifft. Interessantes neues Format. Ich lerne selber viel dazu. Vielen, vielen Dank, Doug Henderson von JL Audio, dass du hier warst. Das war wirklich hochinteressant. Mehr Informationen zu den Produkten und auch zu der Technik findet man direkt unterhalb des Videos. Es würde mich sehr freuen, wenn Sie den Kanal abonnieren würden, auch das nächste Mal wieder reinschauen. Hier bei Stefan trifft, wenn wir hier interessante Leute mit interessanten Geräten da haben. Bis demnächst.